Hello everyone. So I am coming back to you with something a little bit different today. I'm comparing two of Bali's most popular maxi style scooters or bikes. This is the ADV 160 and this is a Yamaha Nmax, right? They're not, here's a disclaimer, they're not direct competitors actually because this one's oriented more towards like the trail riding crowd. But they're similar enough where you can make pretty direct comparisons, and people usually look at both of them when they're comparing for a bike to buy. So that's why I wanted to make a video. And everything online's in Indonesian or like another language, so I figured I'd do like an English review on this. So just for a reference, this is the 2025 Honda ADV 160 Road Sync. So the Road Sync is the highest trim Honda ADV. Basically you get like a keyless start. You get like Bluetooth display, which you could put sat nav on, you can control music, do all that. Comes with ABS, all the tech gadgets and gizmos. They're both like fully automatic, right? Or not automatic. They're both like twist and go CVT style moped bikes, right? Like most other not Maxi, like most other mopeds here. This is the 2022 Gen 2 Nmax, completely base Nmax, right? So it's the base, basic Nmax, right? Not the highest trim, not the Nmax Turbo, just the normal Nmax. LCD screen, normal screen. With the ADV, if you don't have the Road Sync version, you don't get the Bluetooth display, and then the basic version doesn't have ABS actually. And so we'll talk more about that later. But the first thing I want to talk about is the most important aspect about these two bikes that people look for: comfort. Rider and passenger comfort, right? Straight from the factory. The ADV has better suspension, straight from the factory. These come with Showa shocks. They're still more stiff than if you were to get your own aftermarket shocks, but they're pretty high quality shocks. The shocks on this specific Nmax, these are, pure stock shocks on the Nmax as well. A little bit more stiff, especially if you go over speed bumps. You'll notice that these sort of like buck a little bit higher and a little bit harsher than these. Of course, everyone I know who owns an Nmax switches out the shocks for like aftermarket shocks, and it does make a much bigger difference than you would imagine, especially if you get like a high quality pair of shocks, because there's two shocks, one on each side. These are adjustable actually from the factory as well, but they're already on the softest setting, and they're still not as comfy as like my friends' Nmaxes who have like, they spent like the extra 2 million to swap out the shocks for something a little bit softer and more comfy. That being said, the seat on the Nmax is quite a bit comfier. Like, it's wider, longer, the dimensions are a bit bigger. I'm talking about both the passenger and the rider. You get a much wider seat on the back, and then here it's a bit soft, quite a bit softer actually. Whereas here it's a bit more of a sportier design. It's much narrower near the sides and the back, and then you get like a much narrower front on this upper bit, but it's still kind of soft, but it's definitely not as forgiving as this one. So that's just something to think about. Obviously, if you want to invest the money on it, just swap out the shocks, and then you'll have like the best possible version of these two. Let me move on to something a little less important, but still something like a lot of people can take into consideration, which is the performance. These two have like very different engines. They're the same size. They're 149cc, 155cc. The engines are designed for very different things. First of all, this is a this is a single overhead cam, and it's really tuned around low RPM, so it's kind of like a tractor basically. Uh, I think it's called the ESP Plus is the technology they have it.
I kind of forgot to go into what ESP Plus is, but it's basically like a set of technologies, everything from the ECU to like cooling jets to the lubrication system. It makes the engine as low friction as physically possible. So theoretically, the ADV was more reliable than the Nmax, which is, from what I hear, is mostly true. This ADV 160 hasn't been out long enough to really test that yet. But with that being said, we actually had another ADV. It actually broke on us because we drove it through pretty deep water during a flood here in Bali last year, and the water was only up to like knee high, but the air intake is actually behind your foot. You'll see it on the screen right now. So water actually rushed in and got into the engine and then destroyed it. So since then that's why we upgraded to the road sync ADV last year, which is how we got this one. So that's something to keep in mind. You know, for something that's marketed to be so off-road capable and has such high ground clearance, the fact that the air intake is so low to the ground is kind of weird. Something they should probably look at fixing.
Very smooth power delivery. You can really feather the throttle. It can really give you like fine throttle adjustments at low RPM, which is spectacular actually. Really cool to experience that if you've never experienced that before. You know, because the Vario and the other small engines, like when you use the throttle, it's almost like it's just like an on and off switch almost. It's obviously not that bad, but like compared to this, that's what it feels like, right? Because like you get like sudden jolts of power, and like the power is like very up and down, whereas this it's like a very smooth power delivery. Moving on to the Nmax. The Nmax is dual overhead cam, and the cam itself is variable. So it has something called VVA, variable valve adjustment. I forgot the A stands for actually. But basically, it's like their version of variable valve timing. So when you hit around, I think it's like 7,000 RPM, 7 or 8,000 RPM, the valves open and close a little bit earlier. And it's a very noticeable difference when you're on the road. It kicks in, if you're just cruising, it kicks in around 70-ish kilometers an hour. If you gun it, you'll feel it as well. Very good for like highway driving, right? You know, if you were to take these two on the drag race, once you surpass like 50-60 kilometers an hour, this will start pulling on you. And it is a very noticeable difference. If you're driving it along, you'll feel it when the VVA kicks in. Like it's not like a huge jolt forward, but you hear the engine, like it's like a sudden surge of power when you hit that rev range. So yeah, for if you're doing like a lot of highway driving, like, you know, that's something to consider. I've noticed I get better fuel mileage with this. This one, I keep track of the mileage on here. I do pretty much the same kind of driving with both of these most of the time. But like, I get around 55 kilometers per liter on this bike, whereas I get around 45 to 47 on this bike. And I do notice I have to refill this one quite a bit less than this one. I'm actually kind of shocked how much I have to refill this bike. And so yeah, fuel efficiency, you know, ADV wins. What else? So the off-road capabilities of this bike, only the two highest trims have ABS. And the ABS is really what makes this so much fun to drive off-road. You know, take this for example, like I find myself in this situation a lot where you're going down a kind of a steep hill on gravel. You sort of like ride out the rear brake a little bit. The ABS is a godsend for that. Like if you're going down a steep hill, it's amazing. But it's annoying because the base ADV doesn't have ABS. So that's one thing to consider.
Editor Man here. So on top of the off-road safety aspect, I also forgot to mention it's really good to have ABS when you're in the rain as well. It'll save your butt. A lot of people don't like ABS for off-roading because then you could slide around. And you can always turn the ABS off too. So, you know, having the option there is like a big plus. One other thing I forgot to mention too about the ADVs, if you're doing any like serious off-roading, like really like I'm talking about like enduro stuff, right? I've given it a whirl as well. And you know, if you're in the active seating position where you're standing up, it's really awkward because the wheel wells on this bike are kind of like really far forward, so you can't really like actually stand up. There is a mod that attaches to the frame of the bike. It's like two extra foot pegs right behind the end of the footwell that I've seen people attach. I've never tried them. I don't know. If you're trying to do like some actual hardcore stuff like that, that might be worth looking into. Which brings me on to another point that I forgot to mention. The modding, like the trail and adventure modding scene for the ADV is huge. Tons of mods for the ADV nowadays, which is super cool. All the mods for the Nmax, it's all like performance street stuff. But for the ADV, there's a ton of trail mods where you could really kit it out. That's just the adventure community in a nutshell, to be honest, though.
If we're talking about the base ADV versus the base Nmax, not the road sync, but the basic ADV versus the basic Nmax, I'd say go with the Nmax, right? But if you're gonna go on like off-road adventures and you're gonna go camping like somewhere in the mountains and if you know for sure you're gonna try to go off-road, I'd say go with the ADV. But get an ADV with ABS. I know it's about 3 or 4 million more to get an ADV with ABS, but the safety aspect of it, like it will save your neck. You can't really put a price on that. But anyways, yeah, thank you guys for watching. Subscribe if you like the channel. I'll probably do more bike content soon. Have a good one.